Well, that was a bit spazzy. Bear and Breakfast is a small indie game released in 2022 created by Gummy Cat, a small 5-person studio located in Romania, published by Armor Games. In this game, you play as a bear who opens a bed and breakfast in the middle of the woods. But before I get too far into this, I just have to say, this game is hands down one of the cutest games I've ever played. From Hank's walking animations, to the characters, to just the general art style, you can really tell the devs took some time to try and make this just a cute and cozy and relaxed experience. Speaking of the devs, I feel like we can't really talk about the game without talking about the game served as the debut project for lead designer and game director. I'm probably gonna mess this up, so don't roast me too hard. Rares Sinteza? Pretty sure that's wrong. He started his career out working at those awesome guys working on games like Move or Die and Monster Prom, and eventually decided to try his own hand at game design creating Gummy Cat. The original idea for the game was to have Hank, our main protagonist, eat the guests. However, that didn't really seem to fit the cozy vibe of the game, and truth be told, I'm glad they didn't go that route. You know, as fun as it sounds to play a bear eating people, that very much would have taken away from the experience. But aside from idea swapping, there were other issues ranging from programmers using the server to mine crypto, to the pandemic, to just general growing pains of an inexperienced game designer who was running out of both funding and time, all the while trying to make a management sim that wasn't made from pixel arts like all the other competitors. And let me tell you, they really knocked it out of the park, especially for a debut game. The decision to make the game have cartoon-style hand-drawn animations while still being able to maintain upwards of 50 NPCs on the same map is impressive to say the least, but I feel like that's starting to get into the topic of... So I briefly talked about this a moment ago, but the whole concept of the game is that you play as Hank, a young brown bear who opens up a bed and breakfast, although saying a bed and breakfast might be a bit misleading. You go from having a literal shed in the middle of the woods to running multiple locations ranging from a no-tell motel in the desert to a ski resort to an entire woodland getaway. All of them will need to be repaired and maintained by you, from picking up trash to feeding guests to accepting new reservations, deciding the layout of the rooms, and even creating and placing your own furniture. Bedrooms aren't the only rooms you'll end up making either. You'll have to make bathrooms and dining rooms and lounges and kitchens and arcades and movie theaters and all sorts of other rooms. The more you progress through the game, the greater the demands get from your guests until finally you essentially have your own mini theme park in the woods, with rooms that would even make the most prestigious 5-star hotels jealous. If it all sounds a bit overwhelming, that's because it is. If you do it alone. Like I said earlier, the game devs wanted to make a relaxing gameplay experience, so to mitigate the workload, they added a few helpers for you, ranging from concierge to trash man to chef. Now, they don't work for free, unfortunately. You will have to pay them for their services, and the pay will be determined by how much you have them do. You can set them up to essentially run the entire location without you needing to be there, or you can have them do just one or two things, allowing you to have a more hands-on approach. In the end, it's really up to you. Now, full transparency, in my playthrough, I very much had all of my resorts fully automated, so I could focus on setting up new locations. But speaking of new locations, I did also want to talk to you about... Most games I play, I enjoy a bit of building if the game offers it, and this game was no exception. Not only was it satisfying to take a rundown location covered in trash and debris and turn it into a top-tier resort, but it was fun trying to figure out the best layout for the rooms in general. Setting up the rooms was kind of like a puzzle. Some rooms require them to be by others, while some rooms take away from others. And I hear you asking, Dingus, what does that even mean? And to that I say, how would you feel if you were staying in a hotel but your bathroom was on the other side of the building, and you shared a wall with the kitchen? You probably wouldn't be very happy, even if the room itself was immaculate. Well, your guests feel the same way. You'll actually have to put some thought into where each room is located, and think about things like making sure you have enough bathrooms and don't put a room next to the boiler room or the kitchen, to even just making sure you actually have enough room to actually fit all the furniture you want and still be able to walk in and out and get to the bed. On top of deciding location of the rooms, you'll also need to fill them, and let me tell you, there's a lot of options to say the least. From a bed made of pallets, scrap cloth, and cardboard to brushed gold cupboards and candelabras, all of which you can either buy or make yourself. Some of the top tier items will require a bit of both if I'm being honest. Because of this, the game very much encourages you to go exploring and foraging for materials, and thus, we've gotten to the gameplay loop. You'll be brought to a new location, you'll clear it out from trash, spruce it up, build the rooms, then you'll fill it with furniture, during which you'll run out of resources, so you have to go from location to location gathering more and rinse and repeat until you have the B&B the way you like it. In the words of the game devs themselves, build, manage, explore, repeat, and boy did they ever hit that mark. I have hours and hours of recording of me doing this exact loop. And if I'm being honest, at first it was really fun going to new locations and meeting new NPCs and gathering more resources just so I could finish one last room before before opening the doors to the public, but towards the end of the playthrough, it felt very grindy, to the point where I would get 1, maybe 2 rooms done before having to stop and gather more resources or wait until the next day so I had more money. I ended up memorizing the exact location of where specific resources would spawn. Some people would say that means the devs did a good job at making you return to old locations, but after a while, I just wish that there was a store that I could buy some of these resources at, or maybe chop down a tree or two. However, that does go against the whole point that the game is trying to make, the point being that you can take what's already there, recycle it, and turn it into something great. There's tons of examples of this throughout the entire game, from the basic gameplay loop of fixing up old buildings, to how you buy your furniture from a literal dumpster ran by a raccoon and the rat mob. It's a beautiful point to drive home, but after a while, as far as gameplay is concerned, it starts to actually take away from the game rather than give to it. The idea of woodland creatures trying to help out and make the community great again is great, but we're still gamers, we're still playing a game. We want to be able to actually progress faster than just scavenging for resources. But speaking of the rat mob, I did also want to touch on the topic of in my opinion, the different characters you meet along the journey were really the highlight of the game. I most enjoyed the game when I was meeting new NPCs and starting to get to know them. From a spazzy possum to a timid goat and an angry bird. No, not that angry bird, this angry bird. You really meet a whole range of NPCs, even humans that are oddly okay with talking to a bear. Then again, if your guests don't question the factor that they're being checked in by a possum, their room's being cleaned by a rat, and their food's being cooked by a goat, I guess talking to a bear is the least crazy thing going on, even if he's making literal bear noises. On a side note about that, I did just want to say that even if this was a common thing of talking to animals, I still think these guests are either crazy or just don't care, because they will straight up just throw trash on the ground in front of you. All I'm saying is that if a bear was running my hotel I was staying in, the room I would be in would be spotless whenever I left. Anyways, back to the original topic. I really enjoyed talking to these characters. There were more than a few times I found myself audibly laughing at some of the dumb things that they were talking about. It was a running joke throughout the game about how dumb Hank was, and man, the roasts were just fantastic. Like Gus telling Hank he isn't playing with a full deck of cards, and Hank's response was, "I don't even like gambling." Or Will trying to explain to Hank that money's a good thing, and Hank just simply not understanding. It was all very silly, and I loved every second of it. So I guess that really leaves us with the big question of what did I think of the game and would I recommend anyone to buy it? And to be honest, it's a bit of a weird question for me. There were many parts of the game that I loved, and truth be told, I played a little bit of the game before deciding to actually start recording. But on the other hand, the end game made me want to put it down. In fact, writing the script, I left the game running so I could try and wait a few in-game days to get a quest done that I was given. I really think that the game could have greatly benefited from an adjustment to the pacing, especially once you hit endgame. Past that, I think the game was fun. I do also recognize that this game was the first game made by the team, and they were working the kinks out along the way. So I think in my opinion, the game was good for what it was. I'm not sure I would go back to it. However, I am excited to see what else the studio makes. I also find it difficult to actually recommend this game to anyone, and to be honest, if it wasn't free on Epic at the time of me getting it, there's a good chance I just wouldn't have. I would say it's worth a play if you can find it for free somewhere, whether it be through a gift or it goes free on Epic again. And if you're really interested and don't want to wait for something like that, I would recommend waiting for it to go on sale. Anyways guys, I've been Dingus, you've been you, this has been Bear and Breakfast, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.